acolo este, va fi corner, dragi ascultători.
Good afternoon, it's 3 p.m. on Monday if you're tuning in immediately, which you probably aren't because this is in the past now. I'm Richard Jackson and I'm joined today by member of the Inner Council of Verde, Dun Juan Casey. There you go, there's the official Verde dance. Revolution, brothers and sisters and anyone in between. Today we're here to talk about David Fincher's...
This is Ricardo Jackson as well.
Ricardo
lest we
Jackson.
forget.
Oh yeah, I should do that. Yeah, I'm here too. We're here to talk about David Fincher's Alien 3. Here's a clip of that.
The rescue team arrived for Lieutenant Ripley.
It's here. You got Clemens.
Stop this raving at once.
I'm
Stop
telling you. It's here.
it. Here and get that foolish woman back to the infirmary. Move it, help me! Fuck!
Okay, Duncan, why don't you fill us in on Alien Cubed, as you call it?
Alien Cubed, yeah, it's a weird decision to put the little tree.
Little tiny three.
The little tree there at the top in
Alien
case you
times
didn't
alien
know.
times alien.
So someone might go, oh, it's alien. No, look closer. It's the fool people without glasses. Anyway.
Well, this is great, isn't it? Because you really paint yourself in a corner by calling the second one Aliens, because all you could do is Aliens 3, Alien 3, or Aliens.
I always want to think that distinction between Alien and Aliens only cropped up a few years ago because most people just said Aliens 1 and Aliens 2.
Well, I think that's when it was part of Paul W. Anderson's shit was like, it's not Aliens versus Predator, it's Alien versus
Well, and
Predator.
actually, this is the thing I think we got right. Is AVPR, isn't it Aliens versus Predator Requiem? I don't know. Anyway, who gives a monkey's arse?
Anyway.
Point being, here we are. Here we find ourselves. Alien Cubed opens. In fact, so let's go back to the ending of Aliens. Obviously, we know how that ends, but right at the end of the credits, there's a plane that flies over.
We live next to we don't live together. That's Valverde Airport, which may or may not be picked up on the mic. I don't know. But that's our glorious pilots flying off to do missions or something.
Yeah, to drop drugs somewhere probably. Yes, right at the end of the end credits of Aliens, that you hear like a egg opening and a scuttling.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, right at the end there's that thing.
That's probably the only excuse for what unfolded.
Yeah,
in
it's a very to then make a whole film about that is a bit. But so we open, I think, quite well, like artistically. The start of Alien.
We are watching the extended or assembly cut, by the way, not the theatrical cut. Just so we're clear.
We will
We're
discuss
viewing
the differences.
The differences are there to be discussed.
So it opens on, and I don't know if this is different in the theatrical cut because I haven't watched that in so long. But the opening is like it's intercut. The sort of titles are intercut with lots of close-ups of like warning lights going off and computer systems and like acid blood dripping on things, and then this what's it called? Like an escape pod type thing.
It's like the EEV.
EEV, that's it. Gets ejected, and it looks like some sort of giant hinge thing. It looks great. I think it looks really cool.
That's that kind of brutalist industrial thing. The Alien universe's aesthetic, which seems to have been lost in the newer things which are set before, but it's still there. The kind of industrial.
Yeah. Very much so. It looks like a sort of big bolt slides out from the top of it, and it kind of moves. Anyway, so that gets sent out into space, crash lands on a planet, which turns out to be an ex-prison planet populated by this sort of monastic order of prisoners who have stayed on long after this whole thing has been closed down, which used to be a lead refinery or something?
It's a lead refinery, yeah.
How do you refine lead?
Oh, look at that lead.
Yeah,
Oh.
I guess you get lead ore.
You teach it elocution and take it to a wine tasting class.
I don't know how
That's how lead sounds.
That's how lead
like
sounds.
Droopy Dog.
Hello, I'm lead. I'm malleable at room temperature.
Which is effectively just...
You learn about science on our show.
Yeah.
Science.
Sort of Truman Capote by way of
Droopy Dog.
Droopy Dog. Yeah.
But yeah, the thing is with this, as I'm sure you all know, Alien 3 was an insanely messy pre-production. There was a concept about it being a wooden planet populated by monks. There was a version where it was about kind of the Cold War in space on a space station, and they'd actually built the sets for this and then changed their minds on the script and were kind of writing the scripts after the fact they'd entered production, which is kind of mad. And unfortunately, it is sort of a mess. I mean, the superior version for me is the extended version. I think, for example, Paul McGann's character actually has a motivation, something to do, instead of just appearing for a bit.
Yeah.
The kind of ox thing makes a bit more sense.
Yeah.
There are general kind of blocking of scenes in there where people are. It all kind of fits together a lot better. Because ultimately you've got a bunch of bald dudes in dirty overalls standing around, and you've really got to be careful how you...
They're all Pete Postlethwaite in my head, pretty much.
We've got like Clive Mantle and Brian Glover, and like it's an absolute
great
list
cast
of British actors.
Yeah.
Like Ralph Brown, like
Paul McGann.
Paul McGann, of course. You've got a Doctor in there, you know. You've got Doctor Who in there. You've got
Shout out to Paul McGann, because my friend Craig Pinder knows him very well, both at RADA at the same time. Anyway,
I'm friends with a bloke that works on the bins.
Yeah, I'm not name dropping, and I get accused of that all the time. But
The guy who works on the bins called Craig.
Yeah.
No, it's an amazing cast, right?
Yeah.
And Charles Dance, I really love Charles Dance generally, as I've talked about before. Chuck D, he's really great in it and gets kind of snatched away, and he's kind of a really big part of the emotional core of the film, because he gets to have a relationship with Ripley.
Yeah.
That feels a bit rushed. It's kind of like, oh, I'm really traumatised. Shall we have sex? Go on then. Seems to be.
I don't know that it ever really occurred to me that it was rushed. It's funny because I think they're both two very desperate people, but at very different points. You know, like he has that really slow, low energy because he's resigned himself to this life of essentially celibacy and whatever. But he's kind of he's this guy who fucked up once because he was addicted to whatever, and he got killed a load of people. And it's like she's at this traumatic stage. So they're kind of two people who meet at a point where it's kind of quite a toxic relationship in a lot of ways. But it's like. But the coming together of them at that point is just out of desperation, I think, in a way for Ripley.
I think it works for Ripley's character, because
Yeah.
everything she's been through and all she's had taken away, you really buy her just going, do you know what, fuck it.
Yeah,
Like
that's why she shaves her hair off. That's why she's.
Well, actually, there's something that I found quite interesting is that they really make hay of the planet. Fury 161 has a species of very aggressive lice.
That's
and
right.
the extended cut shows you that, and it even says it on screen, which ties into the cutting of the hair.
Yeah.
The thing as well in the extended version, Ripley's found washed up on a beach, and it's got this kind of biblical quality to it, because it ties into this sort of this kind of monastic thing, but it's got a kind of Moses thing, and she's kind of charred, because in the normal one they just pull her out of the pod.
Right.
It's really great imagery with the prisoner finds her on the beach, and she's kind of all covered in. It's so much better.
Yeah, I don't know what she's covered it, because you're right. It looks like she's been burnt.
I think it's soot.
Yeah.
I will say that the EEV or whatever the pod's called just seems to heal itself over the course of the film. Because
Right.
when they find it, it's totally smashed. To buy a little monologue at the end, and they repeat from the first one.
Yeah.
It's fine. So they've given it a wipe.
Is it? Oh yeah.
Yeah, the inside of it, because when she goes to scan herself, it's all fine, but at the beginning of the film, it's all smashed up and black
true.
and stuff.
But then they do crane it out of the water, so maybe they
Give it a rinse.
give it a rinse.
Pop it under a cold tap.
Yeah.
It works in most things.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the thing. It's spam. It's Billy Face Me. It's Reclaimed Me. It's this kind of thing. It's the only Alien film that's of the main series Alien films. David Fincher is the only director that wouldn't return for any of the special editions. Like, he's completely washed his hands of it.
And I think that's a shame, because I think people's appraisal of that film over time has gotten better and better and better. I mean, that's why it's called the assembly cut rather than a director's cut, because he wouldn't put his stamp on it.
I mean, he never had a director's cut in that he didn't cut the theatrical one either.
No. So, but I think, I'm sure. I would hope that he's aware now that people do hold it in higher regard. I think it's just something that it was that bombastic left turn of Aliens that this is a course correction in a lot of ways. But I think he puts a really unique stamp on it, and I think it does have its own identity. And I think it's to sort of dismiss it as this sort of lazy sequel. All right, there's some grist for that particular mill in terms of of the production and how it was treated by Fox, but I think. I think the end product though is actually really interesting and really good, and I mean it has this beautifully depressing quality to it, which I think it had to be that way. I mean, like when you think about poor Ripley, she's literally gone through the events of Alien, gone to sleep, woken up, sort of had a brief flirtation with a job as a loader driver or whatever, essentially a forklift driver, then got back into this horrible nightmare, then went to sleep thinking she'd solved all their problems, and then woke up in this horrible nightmare.
She rebuilt her life in that, okay, she's got kind of a surrogate daughter, and it's implied that there could be something between her and Hicks as well. And then there's Bishop too, who's kind of like almost the wizard or the granddad. And she's rebuilt this family, and it's all snatched away.
Yeah.
And that's it. This was a really culturally important film. I mean, the image of Ripley with the shaved head is iconic.
Yeah.
Regardless of what you think. And on the internet, there seems to be the concept that the word iconic just means really, really good. And it doesn't. It means it's derived from the word icon. It means something that's kind of emblematic and repeatedly. When this film came out, there was loads of hype for it. I saw it when it came out on video, and I was really disappointed because the characters, and it's such a gut punch, and it seems so pointless. Like everything you earn in Aliens is just wiped out by this film, and I'm still annoyed by that. But what it then plays into is this really interesting, very artfully made film. I mean, there is a lot of film art in this, and I think it's Alex Thompson as cinematographer. Cinematography is off the scale. It's wonderful. It's so nice. And there's one part. Whoops! Just knocked my other beer over. When they're debating, kind of like trapping the alien, there's one frame where one of the prisoners is hidden in kind of a circular alcove.
Yes.
And the frame is like, I'll try and find it and put it on if I can. There's a frame that's all wall, and then there's the corner of the alcove, and he's hanging out. I think the sets in it are amazing. Yep. Like the industrial stuff. It looks so good, and it's covered so well.
Yeah.
He also did Demolition Man and a few other things. And I think that's there are loads of.
Is he who did he start shooting with originally? Because it was that
Fincher.
Yeah, there was his original DP was a guy who, bless him, had Parkinson's or something. They started to realise that as they were going through production. I can't remember his name. Sorry, that's really bad.
This is why I've introduced a system of little on-screen tag thingies. So
his name was
Mr. Black.
Yeah, bless him. Like Fincher, it was like as he was going on, as they were going on, he just realised this guy.
On this film?
Yeah. The original DP was a chap, bless him, and he started shooting with him, and then in the first sort of few weeks, he realised he just wasn't.
Jesus.
He was starting to miss things and not.
There's great conversational moments where there's extreme low angles, extreme high angles has kind of been overlooked. There are moments where it's kind of stretched. It's in the anamorphic format, and it really takes advantage of the anamorphic format. There's loads of use of kind of lens flares and stuff like that, and it's in that kind of bokeh-y kind of stretched out look. It sometimes looks claustrophobic. It sometimes looks huge and cavernous. I mean, there's loads of cavernous sets, and there's lots of. A lot of the coverage in this is on wide lenses, and it really shows. Do you feel it gives? So for me, it gives me the impression of being inside a structure that is chambers and tubes. Very much like a xenomorph itself, you know. It's got that kind of. It's almost like being trapped. Well,
inside
they even do the scene where Ripley hallucinates the alien.
Yeah.
And then it's a pipe.
Yeah.
She tries to stave its head in, and kind of cockroaches fall out or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and then they do the trick from Aliens where the creature is out of focus in the background, and it looks like it's part of the background, and it emerges.
Well, I was going to say that there's that's the hallucination scene is the inverse of the end of Alien, where it is. She thinks it's a pipe for the longest time, and then turns out it's not.
Oh God, they do that in all three, don't they?
Yeah.
The fake out thing, which is a good trick.
Yeah.
Again, the assembly cut makes a hell of a lot more sense. It's longer, which is not something I generally approve of, but I watched it last night for the first time in a while, and I just sank into it. I loved it. I really enjoyed it. It's I've used the analogy before of like it's cinematic broken biscuits. It's reclaimed meat, and I found on the assembly cut at least the sound mix is a mess.
Right.
Like because I've got just a sound bar here, nothing fancy, and I'd have sat there with the remote in my hand the whole time because there'd be loads of really quiet dialogue, and then it'd be like bum 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 bum, and is Elliot Goldenthal did the music? God, I might have got that wrong.
Yes, it was.
I will put up Mr. Black. I'll put up a tag again if I got that wrong.
Yeah.
But I think the music jives really well with what we've heard before. It fits perfectly in that series.
The score for me is a massive part of the personality of Alien 3. It really plays into that. I mean, it has that Bwami kind of Zimmer character, Bwami. But it is what creates this really oppressive, like. And you get all those shots, especially towards the end of those shots of the outside of Fury, blah blah blah, of all the like the furnaces being shut down and this sort of big machine grinding to a halt, and it's like got all this really depressing, like bah, 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 like really, like just really ominous score to it, and it really is. It is. I don't think it's one of those horror films, but the horror is not the horror of the situation. The horror is the futility and the desperation and the ultimate sort of just nihilism of being a human. That's what it's depressing.
It's really nihilistic. It's about, and you know, like I said, there's all these kind of really cavernous sets, and they cover it in wides on wide lenses quite a lot, and it creates the feeling of being small and meaningless. You know, you're small and meaningless in an indifferent universe, and all it wants to do is kill you.
Yeah, and you just look like everyone else.
And you look like everybody. You lose your identity. It's like this kind of battle-hardened warrior that's done it all for nothing, lost her identity, and now she's trapped in a literal prison.
In terms of film devices for characters, what's interesting about the original Alien is that there was supposed to be that sex scene between her and Dallas, and one of the tropes we know of horror films is that if people have sex, they die, right? The only thing I can walk it back to is that obviously Ripley's being punished and punished and punished, and the thing that feels really unfair about it was that she never really did anything wrong.
Yeah.
The only thing I could walk it back to is a sex scene in the original one, where she, you know, but it's like, even that's not wrong, obviously, but you know, it's that thing of like, is that the original sin that she commits?
And you know, it breaks it. You know, Alien is a film that broke the rules of horror anyway.
Yeah.
So you know, it kind of all starts to fall to pieces, unfortunately, through that lens, because it was very unconventional. And so this has like an attempted rape scene, which kind of feels like obligatory because it's a woman in a prison, you know. And luckily, it's not too graphic or anything like that. But it's kind of
they managed to veer away from it because they use it as a point of connection for her and Charles S. Dutton's character.
Yeah, and Dutton's whole thing is like, I'm a murderer and rapist of women.
Yeah.
And it's a great scene for Ripley because she just kind of like, he says that and she just sits down in front of him and starts picking at her lunch.
Yeah.
And it's great. She's just kind of, fuck you.
Yeah,
I killed an alien queen. Like, fuck you. I don't give a shit. Because I think Ripley, I would say that much, like Ripley is very much Ripley in this. I mean, like her character is not compromised.
Yeah, like for all her kind of misgivings about returning to the role of Ripley and everything like that, I think Sigourney Weaver gives it her all, and she had every reason not to. Like, you know, she came at this, you know, one could look at it as like she made a cynical cash grab because at the time she had a pretty outrageous contract.
And she's very heavily involved. She's like exec producer or something on this as well.
So, yeah. But do you know what? She's someone who has always had great integrity for me. I mean, she's someone who's always seems like she elevates what she's in. She turns up, she wants to make sure it's fucking good. Even Resurrection, man, like she worked fucking hard on that. All that stuff about her like training underwater and doing all that stuff, you know, like she really wanted a good product out of this. And, you know, I know the people give her shit for like the whole no weapons of any kind. Everyone's like, no, but like actually that's a far more interesting premise than just blasting aliens the whole time.
Well, yeah, it's not fucking Laser Quest. I do love Laser Quest. I'm sorry, Laser Quest. I didn't mean that. But it's not Laser Quest. Like, you know, and that's I think kind of Aliens, as brilliant as Aliens is, it's a brilliant film. It kind of spoilt it a bit because then it just meant that all everyone is ever going to expect is to shoot 'em up war thing.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get that again because Aliens is lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
And I think the setup to this film still is unforgivable, but I think where it then goes is really interesting, and I think it's this really artfully made film. And you know, David Fincher is one of the most important working American directors.
Undoubtedly.
You know, contemporary directors, and he's a favourite of mine. You know, like even Seven was like one of my favourite movies, and he probably considers that his debut after.
Possibly
after this. And he worked on Return of the Jedi. You know, he was like a special effects cameraman on Return of the Jedi, and he was a music video director.
Yeah.
So it's the classic thing with the studio bringing someone they see as talented that they think they can push around. Because there's some shots in here that apparently him and Sigourney Weaver snuck off and shot handhelds that the studio said they weren't allowed to do.
Yeah, so maybe with the alien in the basement or so. I stopped short. I try and resist this whole like studio evil, like director good, like you know, because it is. Nothing is ever that simple, you know.
It's reductive. It's seductive to be reductive.
Yeah.
Because people like to boil things down to the black and white, but
yeah. Then there's always got to be a good guy, bad guy narrative, and look, and I know in this instance there was a bit of that.
And guess what? Sometimes the director's the shithead. That happens too. You know.
Yeah, I mean, but I know in this case that Fox needed a hit. They were returning to a well that had, you know, was a well that initially they didn't think was going to be this. It was very much a sort of schlocky sci-fi thing that got elevated by Ridley Scott, and then I understand that, but I think you know, it's tough. It must have been a tough sell for them, for whoever to come at them and say, look, we want to fucking kill Ripley and we want to have this horrible nihilistic end essentially to a trilogy. And they must have been going, no, whoa, Space Marines, fucking woo, pew, pew, like come on, like what happened to that? We need that again, like, you know, and so
it's funny, isn't it? Because despite all, because like I say, it's this really compromised thing, and it's really sad because essentially I think it's going to be an unfinished film forever.
Yeah.
And we're not going to get the what we've got in that extended cut. I think is really, really great. I think it's fucking tons better than Resurrection, and we can talk about that another time if you like. But I just think it's a really, really interesting and actually quite satisfying film. And it, despite itself, because it does everything wrong in a lot of ways, but kind of the ending and stuff, I think it kind of wraps up Ripley's story. And, you know, it's fucking depressing, and I'd rather end the way it ends in Aliens, where everybody floats off and it's all happy and they go have a family. But I'm kind of glad this exists. It's been a while since I watched it again, but I really, really enjoyed it.
I mean, either they need to float off and it be ambiguous, or you need something like this. You cannot have like what interest is the film where they all become a family. Like how is that interesting?
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
you know,
this just in, everything's fine. Like,
you know, or for them to try another situation where somehow there's another alien. And I mean, that's the other problem. I mean, at this point, remember where the series was at this point. It's like, as far as they were concerned, LV-426 was the only place with aliens, and they blew it up.
Yeah.
So to contrive another alien into it.
That's the problem with the setup as well. I mean, the closest thing you've got to explain the setup is, because the film keeps it vague. It's like Bishop goes like, yeah, there's an alien on the ship, oh no. And then you've got the end of Aliens, you just said, with the noise. It's kind of vague how it even happened.
Well, in theory, there were two face huggers on board. And especially in the assembly cut, you see the like alien face, the Queen face hugger. This is much bigger thing that I'm not quite sure why he finds that. Because wouldn't it be in the? I think it was in the crashed ship or something. Anyway, but it's what's impregnated Ripley. But then there was another one, and there's all sorts of these guys online who are like, well, if the Queen face hugger would have little warrior regular face huggers that follow it around, that keep it safe. Yeah, I know. It's that thing of the Darth Vader Red Letter Media did that great thing with like explaining what everything
good.
does.
Star Wars is such a mine for that as well, just endlessly over-explaining shit.
It's like,
geez, you know what? Maybe stick with what you just got on screen.
I mean, so look, I guess the very tenuous link is that the alien Queen was stowed away aboard the dropship and snuck
an egg in.
Shat an egg or two out. But I mean, how they didn't see that?
Yeah, I know. It's annoying, and it's just there to make this, because then the setup for Alien Resurrection is even more of a stretch. Like it's also something that kind of bothers me in this, and it's a bit kind of too real, is when like Bishop 2 gets hit on the head. Why is his ear hanging off? Like, because all you need is like a shitload of red blood. Because he says, I'm not a droid, we get it.
Yeah.
And he's like, a load of red blood. But that whole scene, because it would be really powerful, but he's got this kind of like,
it's almost like they set it up for him to be an android, and then at the last minute put red blood on it because they're like, no, he's human. It's like if you did that to a human. Yeah, like his ears, like he'd be fucking screaming seriously
agony.
Unconscious.
It's sort of like, it's a bit too much. It's like in The Walking Dead, spoilers for like 3 seasons ago, when Glenn gets his head bashed in, his eye kind of pops out.
Yeah, I know.
And it's like, well, that would happen, but it's just a bit much. Like, the fucking his ear hanging off. And it's kind of like,
for the sake of that scene, though, it's like Bishop wouldn't be, you know what I mean? Like, he shouldn't have his... Also, ears don't really work like that. Like, they're not just attached to the skin on your head. They wouldn't, like, flop forward. It's like...
There's red blood, we get it.
Yeah.
Like, that's just so dumb.
It is a bit... like I say, it just, to me, always reads like that prosthetic and everything was set up for him to be an android that would have milk pouring out of it, because why else would it all sort of flop off?
Right.
But then at the last minute, they were like, no, he's human.
And it's just... I will say, actually, as well, that the puppet of Lance Henriksen, it's actually really good. Like,
it's brilliant. Yeah.
It's like when she's picking it up, it doesn't have enough weight, and it's like, but when it's articulated, it's really good. Like, it's really good. And the bit when the kind of the alarm system comes out of Bishop's mouth and stuff, it's nice and kind of creepy.
Yeah, because he's just replaying it's almost like a really horrible version of the C-3PO doing the like, oh gosh. He does all like, the sound of it. There's another link to Jedi. What was I going to say? What were we just talking about?
Talk to me.
The
ending. The ending. The.
Oh, Bishop. Right. So this is Bishop. So I mean, obviously, Alien versus Predator be damned, but this is yet another incarnation of.
Just
he
don't
says
go
he's the
there.
bishop.
I hate all this fucking knots we've been tied into with fucking Guy Pearce.
I'm the human who created the thing. It's like, and we've tried to do this so many times with these films. It really doesn't work. And now Terminator's doing it, apparently.
You've not merely bitten that cherry more than once. You've eaten the stalk as well, shat it out, rolled it into a ball, put the stalk back in it, and had another bite. That you can quote me on that one.
Yeah.
Look, it carries. I think kind of the brutalist retro future stuff is carried across. I think the aesthetic of the Alien series, or at least the first Alien film, is carried across better into this one than it is into the second one. I think it's kind of this chunky, grey, rusty thing. I think it's got real kind of depth to it. I think there's lots of different meaning. I think it's really well constructed. I think the cinematography is absolutely beautiful. And I think there's a lot of really good. There's one moment I really liked. There's a great bit of visual storytelling that's just thrown away. And there's a bit where there's like a bucket that's been superheated, and then water goes on it and it cracks.
Yeah.
And it's one shot that I just think any other film wouldn't have bothered to do. And it's that great little nugget of visual storytelling is there to set up
the alien
get Captain Led. It's really nice.
But also as a way of just putting you in the scene in a way that you can't feel heat, right, from the screen unless you've got an old TV or something. But so to give you that sense of heat and what's going on in there, to see metal go like that, it's like that really is
visceral, isn't it? Yeah. There's loads of great Foley in this, really great Foley. And like I say, the assembly cut's got really shitty sound mix, but in the levels are all fun. There's some really great. I mean, it feels like this world.
I mean, I think in a weird way, I think it's a deeper movie. Well, it's sort of evidently deeper movie than Aliens. It's not more enjoyable. It's such a depressing.
It's really fucking bleak, man.
But that is the point
really
of it.
bleak.
It's a really bleak addendum, if you like, to the sort of Ripley saga.
I sort of really like that Brian Glover, or Rottweiler from Bottom, is
Yeah.
But he was, Ken Loach put him in Kes, and then suddenly you've got a link to the world of Ken Loach, which is this really kind of mad, beautiful thing. And he was like Heslop in Porridge as well, so that's the other prison sort of link. But it's got a tie back, and it's got, again, if you just look up this cast list, like everybody's been in all kinds of stuff a ton of times. Like virtually everybody in it is a famous British actor or American actor or whatever. But it's just like the second one. It's shot in England, so there's all these British people.
Yeah, it's Pinewood, wasn't it? And second one was Shepperton.
Shepperton.
Yeah.
It was in an episode of Risky Quizness. Oh no, you can't watch that anymore. It was in an episode of Risky Quizness, which is coming back soon to this channel. Promise. Actually, is. I'm working on it. Anyway. Hey, look, we're just about to run out of time. Alien 3 is unfortunately something that whenever you talk about it, you're to a degree, much like Dead New, you're autopsying it. It's always a kind of it's a discussion of that nature. You're kind of autopsying the film. I think it's really great, and I think despite everything, I think Fincher's kind of art shines through.
Yeah.
I think it's a really interesting, involving film that unfortunately is flawed through the nature of its production to the degree. Something like Suicide Squad, which I know I talk about a lot, but I think Suicide Squad is like a Ponzi scheme of a film, and we had to pay to watch it and it just wasn't finished. Like, this is a fucking masterpiece compared to that. If this is what we had to put up with in 1993 or whatever, 1992, like compared to what we get released now into cinemas, I'm happy with that.
Well, the scenes just aren't as obvious, are they? I don't think in this. I mean, even though, like you say, it's a bit of a hodgepodge and stuff like that, and certainly the theatrical cut is like that, but it still feels of a piece. It still feels like there's a...
And we didn't get this to 2003 as well, which is worth remembering. It's quite a distance between the release and this release.
That's true.
And then they didn't really finish it until 2010. That's another story. But Alien 3, Duncan, it's good, isn't it?
I think it's excellent.
Yeah,
I really enjoy it.
Go watch Alien 3. Myself and Mr. Black will be back next week, where we're going to be discussing Mr. Black. Bye.
Bye.